Good afternoon and welcome to another in a series of TalkSports, the Saturday Sports Special to be exact. And this week we continue with the focus on the family. And indeed, as last weekend we dealt with the Simpsons, that's Babs and Nat Simpson of River Road, Queens Park Rangers to be exact. And this week we move into the village of Happy Hill, where we'll be speaking to the Hectors, Kelvin and Sherry Ann Hector. They have been involved in sports for quite a while. Kelvin, in fact, has been deeply involved in sports at the village level, football, cricket, and I think there may be others as well, but we'll get to know more about that. But joining us today from the village of Happy Hill, and I believe it may be sunny, we'll get to know about that as well. Let's welcome Kelvin and Sherry Ann Hector to our program this afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen and lady.
And to all the listeners of the program.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you for joining us. Right, and thank you for joining us as well. Nice to have you on the program. And as we indicated at the start, we'll be speaking a little about what's really taking place, not just in Happy Hill, surrounding communities as well as your involvement in sports, directly in sports at the national level, as well as how that is impacting your families, because as we discussed in the program last weekend, it takes quite a while, and you, Kelvin, in particular, will know how much it takes in terms of your involvement, where sports is particularly amateurish and voluntary in Grenada. Let's start off by finding out how things have been going regarding the pandemic, how you have been coping. I guess that much life is returning almost back to normal. How are things going?
Well, once again, good afternoon. Not too bad at all, Mike. I have been working, thank God, since because where I work at my company, Jonas Brown and Hubbards, we deal with the food stuff. So every day I have to make sure I up to go and service all the supermarkets and so forth. So thank God for that. Other than that, everything is just normal, cool, quiet. Not much in the football these days, but making sure that things work nice behind the scenes. It's a little bit rainy here today, as you was asking. You hoping it's sunny, but we under the weather today, so we good, and thank God for life and my family.
Okay, well, it's nice to know that it's things are picking back up, and also sad to know that it's on the gloomy side today. All the time it could be like that. But Sherry, how things have been going with you in particular?
Oh, well, just as Kevin said, things have been okay. Um, Regarding football, well, that is partly at a very low because no international competitions.
Mhm.
But locally, I've been working with Happy Hill Football Club. So we've been setting up our under 19 as well as our conference team.
Okay.
So everything is good after God.
Okay then. Well, nice to know, and it's a nice segue too to get into, as you say, working with Happy Hill, because we'll get to the top level in a while. But let's start from the local level. Happy Hill once upon a time was a mecca in terms of sports in Grenada, albeit football and cricket. Kelvin might be able to kick it off rolling, and then Sherry Ann will come into saying what is actually being done. But what has gone wrong, gone bad, gone in the other direction, Kelvin, for when Happy Hill was heyday in sports? What has taken place?
I will say voluntary. Nobody really wants to do things for free anymore. The love and the passion for it. It's if you don't have the love and the passion for something, then it's a little bit difficult to really be associated with it. Um, as you know, we had one of the best local leagues in recent in the past Happy Hill, which we had over 30 teams. And that league was sponsored by the Grenada Breweries, the Vita Malt Happy Hill Football League, along with myself and Alfred Nelson, Dick Charles, and Kelly Patrick. We ran that tournament for almost roughly 8 to 9 years, and which we teams from as far as from St. David's, Grand Roy, Concord, New Hampshire, Willis, and surrounding areas. And when the time come and one man stepped out, we were looking for persons to really come on board to assist, but unfortunately that wasn't on their sheets. They always feel when you do things, you get in this big cash incentive because they see the passion you have for it, but not knowing that after work you have to find yourself in the playing field to make sure the referee is on time, the ground is prepared, and if the referee didn't come, you have to officiate in your working clothes. And people feel you was getting this big cash income after organizing so many years, but not knowing at the end of the day, it was all free. But I have stuck with it for some years, and I took most of the young players coming around to be part of the Happy Hill Sports Club, and we had a reasonable team. We won a few in the second division, first division, into the Premier League. We get demoted. We went back to the Premier League. We get demoted down to the second division, come back up. So we had our challenges. Sad to say, the respect of some of the young people these days, it's a little bit challenging, But Mike, I am here. I am willing to work for free every day. Family life. Sometimes you come home in the evening, your mind is all over the place. You get your thing to eat. It's and your wife have to be with you. If she not with you, well, you could be in some serious trouble when you come home every evening, day after day, 7, 8, 9 in the evening. So, we are here, we coping with it, we get accustomed working with it. So it's become part of our life.
Okay. But do you think it also has to do with the changing dynamics in the community?
Um, in one sense, yes, I will say, but it's tough.
Yeah, yeah, continue. You on?
Yeah, I was saying it's a little bit tough. It's challenging. As I said, it's just tough to get people to really work with you for free and to be dedicated. It's just challenging at this point in time, really.
Mhm. All right. Um, it's it's interesting because we would have heard from others that the number of things that have to be done, um, to get these things in motion, and some people take it for granted. And as you indicated, especially at the community level, where most of it has to do with volunteerism. You're depending on volunteers to be part of it. It's also sad to know that that has taken place. But on the brighter side, as Sherry was indicating, there seems to be some movements, and that there are people who are willing to make that sacrifice, and things are probably looking up to get sports back in the community of Happy Hill.
Well, Mike, to be honest with you, there are a few persons who are willing really to help in one sense or the other, right? Because, for example, if we have an activity, we can go to certain people in the community really to get certain things done, right? In the sense of sponsorship and so forth. But on the other side, you have at that day, you have so much to do as a person. And you will have a sports club. Basically, we have about 30 persons in the club. And, when that day come, you ask yourself if you have so many members, you try to raise funds and the low turnout, it's terrible in that sense. But at the day of the activity, it all turned out well because you satisfied with what you have done and put out so much. And I must say on that note, I must say thanks to persons like Miss Harris, um, Sugar Palace. These are the Mr. Rodney. There is one gentleman from England who take time every year to come down to train the guys, and I must say a special hats off to him. Special thanks. He's not that well these days, and I wish him a speedy recovery. But he's one of the guys who really take time off to 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 um to come and give us that. And I must say thanks also to our PM. He whenever we need anything, we can assure that he's gonna get whatsoever we need from him. So thanks to people again like Miss Harris, Sugar Palace, one Mr. Charles, and just maybe I might just forget a few, but most of the person who sponsors around the area.
Okay. Well, not just the PM, but also the parliamentary representative.
Yes, the parliamentary representative.
But Sherry, what has been the initial feedback you have been receiving from those in the community in terms of the plans to get something back? What's the initial feedback?
Okay, just like Kelvin was indicating, just as we were indicating, the football is alive in the community, is just getting people to volunteer. That has always been the biggest problem. And I always complain that I didn't only volunteer, but I married into it. So I have no way of getting away. So now that with this young crop of players, I'm trying to get into them, the stepping up to be part of the team, not just to play, but the administrative side, so
Yeah,
that they can see how football is not only about going onto the field, but also being part of the administration, preparing the team, registration, going to sessions at GFA. So that is what we are trying to do with this young group and get them accustomed to doing it.
yeah. Well, I'm
Because too
glad you
many
mentioned.
times
Yeah, I was saying
we
I'm
just
glad
get
you
accustomed
mentioned.
to doing it for ourselves.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned those other aspects because it seems that sometimes people get the impression that your involvement has to do just with being a participant, just being playing, but as you indicated, the administrative side as well, because it seems as if that is something that is lacking in terms of sports in Grenada, being good administrators. But you do acknowledge that it is a challenge to get young people to be focused and especially to be focused on issues as regarding administration in sports.
Yes, because I think a lot of them figure because everything is prepared for them that you wave the wand and it happens. They're not aware that it's people behind the scene are making it happen. And they themselves can be more part of the team by doing the whole process because by getting inside of the team, you see exactly what it takes to prepare a team to go out and play a game.
Well, that's and I guess as much you're speaking from your experience as one who has been involved at the national level, I think with women's football in particular. What it was like in terms of the experience, Sherry, being a manager, being an administrator with national teams?
Okay, well, my first experience managing a national team, I can say it was frightening because at that first experience, I didn't get any groundwork on what to do. I was just told I'm managing the national team. That was the national U17 team. And the tournament, the qualifiers were in Trinidad. So I was a little confused. But from my background as working in an office, I took charge and I did what I had to do. Again, like Kelvin, I would like to say thank you to the coaching staff that I traveled on that first tournament. That would be Seymour Redhead, Alana Francois, Brother Monroe. They helped me a lot that first time. Also, when I got to Trinidad, the Trinidad Football Association, their people on the ground assisted us in everywhere. I remember the first tournament when we were there and I was supporting Grenada. One of the TTFA people shouted out, "Oh, why this Grenadian song in Trini?" you know, because she was giving me a lot of flack because we were that tournament, we were neck and neck with Trinidad to qualify. So they were like, "But you are Trinidadian?" I say, "Yes." I say, "I'm Trinidadian, but I'm Grenadian all the time for this." Because it's Grenada I came with, and we shocked all of Trinidad and the Caribbean by we lost by 2 goals because we drew the game against Trinidad. I mean, that was a tremendous tournament. So I can say on the local level and on the national and international level, working with Grenada, it gives you so much pride because I cried when we lost that game against Trinidad because I knew how much girls had put out both in training and on the field to give Grenada that win. So I can say it is a whole, that's why I encourage the players to get involved administratively because it gives you a whole new outlook and makes you even more motivated to want to do better
You there?
more
Okay, I think we having just a little
committed
audio.
to the sport.
Okay, okay, so she is back there. Yeah, well, that is yeah. So I think we just had a little glitch there in terms of the connection, but I think we fully
Yeah,
back now. Um,
yeah, we're back.
but yeah, but it's interesting in terms of that because I know that sometimes it happens that you get to learn on the go. And in your case, as you indicated, the first time it was a learning experience, but obviously after time you will get the hang of everything. But um, how would you assess um, women's football? Because you may have been around, although well you said U17 and things like that, but you may have been around youth football, particularly women's football in Grenada for a while. How would you assess, Sherry, the development of women's football in Grenada?
All right. Well, I can say I was manager of both all the teams, U14, U15, U17, U20, and senior national women's team. And I can definitely say that women football, in the time I have been involved, have grown. I must send kudos to our last technical director, Mr. Vin Blaine.
Yeah,
He brought the difference to women football. He had it organized and it was a professional. You saw the difference in the training because he introduced having teams train year round instead of just for a tournament. And that, I believe, gave most of the players the groundwork to do what they've been doing on the field regards to women football. Women football in Grenada, I think, can grow even larger. But again, I sometimes put my foot in my mouth, but I'm saying this. We have to sometimes, as people, put personalities aside and deal with the sport and do it for the good of the sport. Because at the end of the day, when we think about who like and who don't like, the only person that loses is the sport and the young ladies whose lives can change because of football. And we have seen it. We've not seen it in a big grouping, but small, in little pieces. We are seeing players getting scholarships, furthering their studies through football. And for Grenada to really step into that big league, we must start putting the sport first and these children, and not study about who like and who you do like and who you prefer and who you rather. The only person that's going to lose is the sport of football.
I don't think there's much for me to add to what you just said there, because I think many people would agree that is something that has been, and by the way, not just football, but it's something that is probably prevalent in football, but it's across the board, where we see most times personalities, get ahead of the development of the young people, and especially when you consider the involvement of the people are more voluntary than anything else. Even if, as indicated, there's a stipend, we say that the effort that is being put into it cannot be compensated. No matter what stipend is given, cannot be compensated. But well said, Sherry, and I think kudos to you for that that addition, I should say, to it's riveting, really and truly. Kelvin, back to you. And you know, I notice Kelvin Jr. is trying to get into the fray as well. But it happens at times, But um, you know, based on what Sherry has said there, and I know it's something you would have seen even at the community level as well. What are some of the challenges you see in terms of getting, people back involved in that community spirit that was once prevalent, especially through sports? How do you? I mean, Happy Hill now is a different Happy Hill to probably when it was then with the Vitamall Happy Hill League and things like that. So even if you have to get a Happy Hill team now, it would probably involve players from even outside of Happy Hill. Whether it's Fontenoy, whether it's Molyneux, Bushes, these sort of things. So what are some of the challenges you foresee or you are facing now to get sports back up in the village of Happy Hill in particular and the surrounding areas?
Right, Mike. Up to this morning, I was speaking to someone concerning how early some of the young players really finish playing the game in one sense. And as I said, it goes back to discipline, because when you don't want to be disciplined, I think this is what happened. Because in Happy Hill, there is so many young players here, very good young players, but because of they don't want to be disciplined, they end up leaving the game and not even going and, for example, going to try to play for, let's say, Queens Park Rangers, Fontenoy. It's so sad, because I can tell you we have right now three players from Grand Roy presently playing for Happy Hill, and there is players who in the community who is as good as, but they don't want to be disciplined. They don't want to take correction. They're bigger than the game, and so in all of that, I have kind of step aside this year and leave the football in the hands of one of the most experienced young man in the sport. He's now in his C license coaching. Um, that's Carlson McQueen. So I am now doing basically the managing part of it. Just staying and looking from the outside and trying to see how if I decide to walk away in the morning, if I am leaving it into good hands, because I have been there for a very long time. I am not old, Michael, but I have been in the sport a very, very long time in this in the part of organizing and making sure things is done for football in Happy Hill. We have our challenges. We had our challenges, but now we trying to get back there to make sure that we be on top in football in the Northwest and in St. George's.
Yeah, well, and just to add, because folks may recall that during the Brain of Sports time, Happy Hill, you know, was was involved in Brain of Sports, was a participant, and you represented Happy Hill, you know, dearly, I would say. So when you talk about involvement in sports, you will have been in the trenches for quite a while, you know,
That
and
correct.
yeah, and the Brain of Sports probably is over 20 years old, you know, so
Yeah.
it's quite a while have been involved, and I'm saying that to say also the role that not just yourself but your club as Happy Hill would have played in you know in those early days, because it was basically a sports club, as we'll say. You had football. I think you yes, there was a cricket team as well
Yes.
in
Yes.
the village. So and I'm bringing that conversation back because when we started the program, our focus was also on, you know, the club structure, you know, rebuilding the club structure and not just the team, you know. So in your quest to get sports as vibrant as possible in the Northwest, um, how you think about, or what's your view about proper sports club structure, I should say, sports club structure in the Northwest, where not just football, but possibly cricket as well, netball back in the you know in the sense, because there is the hard court in the Happy Hill Secondary School, for example. I know where the girls will probably play netball, the guys will probably play a little basketball or whatever. But developing a proper club structure in the Northwest, involving not just Happy Hill, but Bushiju, Brisbane, and other surrounding areas.
Okay. What we had before different persons really run in different sports in one sense. Myself, Kelly Patrick, and Nelson, and so forth. We were responsible for football. And Natalie Sandy and Bernadette Bartholomew, that's our teacher Molly, Teresa McQueen, they were responsible for netball. And you have Smutty, there is Jeffrey. He was more involved in the cricket aspect. So when Natalie left, and nobody really took the challenge to organize netball. Small cricket, so you don't see that. We still have football. Athletics, we never had really any persons responsible. But when we had like Northwest games and so forth, different persons used to come forward and really take the athletes down to the playing field and make sure that everything works. So now we, as you say, voluntary get persons to be part, as Sherry said. If we get in persons to go to the seminars and the so forth to really uplift themselves and to get to understand what it is to be part of an organization, it will become so easy. But I think over the years I have taken that workload where I try to make sure that everything is done in the sense that coaching, getting the uniforms, making sure the medical kit is there, making sure that trying to make as a one-man team in one sense. And no, I am trying to get persons over the years to really, come on my side and help me to get this going. And it's been a challenge. It's really been a challenge. So putting sports back into the Northwest now, we will really have to sit down and try and identify a few persons who will have the time and who really love the sport. And it's kind of hard to see, because when we play, there is the same spectators there. Before you see parents come in and look at the children now, you hardly see that. to find persons really, Mike, I think we will really have to dig deep, or the persons will really have to come forward and show interest in being part of it. But it's difficult with the youths these days, really, to actually go on the group chat, ask persons from the sports club to really be a part, whether it's coaching sessions, whether it's for the media sessions, or the PROs, secretaries, and we hardly get response from the players really to go forward to be part of that management staff.
Well, hopefully, and we can only say hopefully, because sometimes you have to hope that things turn for the better. But it's nice to know that it's still something that is being thought of. I recall the involvement of Kelly Patrick and even Natalie Sandy, but even with secondary school in the area, it probably couldn't be considered a feeding ground for the talents that you're referring to, whether it's track and field, cricket, football, netball, volleyball, and with a playing field as the Bushes U playing field. And by the way, I want to touch on facilities. Is the Bushes U playing field lighted now?
Yes, not it is, but not really playable, I should say.
Or
The
not
polls,
not to the
yeah,
standard that not to
that
the
yeah, the
required. Okay.
GFA, even yeah, GFA, required standard. The polls, I think, a little bit too short. So we don't really play like night football there. We train under the lights, but we cannot host any GFA matches. So
All right. Well, the president of the GFA is expected on next week, so it's something probably I can throw at him in terms of getting putting some attention, at the at that playing field. It's a major playing field. It's one where many leagues have been played. Probably
right.
players throughout the island would have played probably in Bushes U than any other place. Sometimes that's it because of the number of tournaments were hosted there over the years. Um, so let's go into some other areas now regarding family. How how do you, both Kelvin and Sherry, how do you try to balance your involvement in sports, which again is basically voluntary, with your normal work schedule plus family? Because as I said a while ago, Kelvin Jr. wanted to be on TV, wanted to be seen. So there's always this this level of attention. But how do you balance that? How do you make that balance?
Mike, to be honest with you, my wife always talks about how difficult it is sometimes. And I show you here in the background there, I have a best wife. So because she copes with it so well. I will just lean back and listen, what she has to say, because we had some tough times, we had some good times, So I will just sit back and let her explain how the time was.
Yeah, and Sherry, before you continue on that point, was there ever a time that you both of you thought about just giving up your involvement in sports because of family?
I have never, I personally have never.
Okay, let's share. Let me hear from Sherry now.
Thank you very much. I am glad you let me. Okay, you hear him saying he has never thought about it. I used to go crazy at the beginning. Well, I'm Trinidadian. We had a relationship long distance. And when I first met this gentleman, he used to, well, I always tell everybody, he used to only tell me about the past year and going in the past year. So I was of the belief the man was a farmer because in Trinidad, past year is where you tie animals. So I say, well, I get through because the man had plenty cow and plenty sheep. So that's money only to come here, get get married, and discover the past year is the football field. So that is where he spent all his time. But now, after years, I've gotten accustomed to it. We try to balance it. When he's too much, I tell him. We had one tournament where we were both going to off island, and we already had the young man who wanted to be. So I was like, how are we going to manage this? Because I was leaving, and then he was leaving a couple days after me. God bless our, well, his mom, my mother-in-law, because she came in and kept the baby for the couple of days. Also for Calvin, it was a tough time after I had the baby. He left us. Okay, she was what, 2 months?
Too.
Yes. And we had a tough pregnancy. So he left me, and the baby was 1 month, and he had to go to
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. So, I mean, there have been argue about football or sport with your Calvin. It makes no difference because he's going to go and that's what he loves.
Yeah, well,
Because I tell everybody, for me, sometimes after a game, I tell them the worst thing is to be married to a coach because after the game, when he if he loses, I hear every single ball, what passed, what should have been done, what should not. And I listen to that all night until falls asleep and he wakes up again to go over the same scenario. So again, like I said before, I am a best wife, and that he always have to give me kudos for standing by him through all the football things.
well, that's interesting because hearing from Babs and Nat Simpson last week, it was a similar scenario where one, you know, put in props for the other, one depending on the other, and it seems as if it's working despite, the difference is something is working. But let me just one comment there from Alan James, who is a vice president of the Grenada Football Association. He's saying that the club can partner or adopt the schools in the area to build a base of players for all sports, and that's piggybacking on your statement earlier, Kelvin, regarding sports in the community. Thank you very much, Alan. But Sherry made the point about being the challenge and being out of the island, probably simultaneously. Um, and you yourself, Kelvin, was involved in an international competition with the youngsters, less privileged, for probably, I think it was 2 or 3 years or something like that. So, but for a while, along with the Jason Roberts Foundation. Let's talk a little more about that. The involvement and the experience of being a part of this program.
Okay, I was part of the Jason Roberts Foundation, the organization for the past for actually 5 years, and within that 5 years, they had this homeless World Cup, and the homeless World Cup is basically hosted in Europe, and Grenada was identified. Well, not Grenada, but the Jason Roberts Foundation was identified as one of the organization or the foundation to be part. And we did take the opportunity to, but when it comes to really getting the criteria to be homeless was one of the greatest challenge. And when they ask through the ministry, the response was not too bad. And just to say, in the homeless World Cup, really, to be homeless in Grenada, the criteria criteria that they had was if you're squatting, all right, if you live in a land, basically that was being part of homeless. Using pipe water like from the standpipe. Basically, or you have a home without running water, that is considered homeless. Then if you're living with someone, that is also considered homeless. So when we had the selection for players, I told the players that based on what I looked up, Grenada have the best set of homeless players in the world in the sense of the criteria. So we went there. We was there with we had to travel to Amsterdam, and it was a challenge because some of the guys had never traveled before. They didn't have a passport. So myself and one lady, I think who used to be at the university, her name was Lindsay, with Andre Patterson and Fiona. We had the challenge to really get things on stream with Coach Chris and and trying to get the young man name there. But we had the challenge in Montrouge in the hot sun every day for four weeks. And we had people on trials like from Grenville, St. Andrews, St. David's, St. George's, St. John's, St. Mark's, who take the trip down to St. George's for the month, really to seek trials for the team. And we went there. We went there. We looked up on YouTube the way the tournament is played, and what it's a three, well, really four aside, where you have three outside players and one goalkeeper, and we travel with a 10-man team, and it's we went there not knowing the rules of the tournament. That was the biggest challenge. We not knowing the rules of the tournament. So we left here with the normal football boots and so forth. When we reached, we were told that we cannot play with it because of the AstroTurf. So we had to get new shoes or new sneakers to play. That was given to us. Then when we played our first game, I think we lost the first game, and we sit down and we look at the games, and we get everything in place. We learned as fast as, and we didn't beat the big teams, but some of the small teams we did well, and we were in the bottom tier of that tournament. Mike, to be honest with you, it was like the regular World Cup. It was like the regular World Cup. There are teams like the USA, Brazil, Germany, all the teams, the normal regular World Cup teams, countries, they were part of this tournament, be homeless World Cup. So in that tournament, in the first tournament, we had over 60 teams, really all across the world. And in Amsterdam, well, the weather was not suited. We didn't get accustomed too fast because we had to travel to England, and then from England, I think we left the train station or the bus station at around 10 o'clock that night in England, and we didn't reach Amsterdam until 10 o'clock the next day. We had to travel on a ferry, first to the ferry, then the ferry will travel, then from the ferry to the bus and drive whole day. Mike, it was something that the players didn't accustom to. I had to make sure that when we get there, it was different. We did play in the bottom tier, as I said, and we had good success to end up in one of the finals in the category because based on the rules of the competition, when you lost, based on how many games you put yourself in a category where the amount of losses all the teams in one one group. And we did well there. We played some 7 games. We end up into the finals, and unfortunately we lost. We lost to India in that finals. We were leading India 3 goals to 1, and came back and lost 4-3. Um, which I was not a happy man knowing that India is not one. The condition we had to play, we had one uniform for a matter of fact, and we play sometimes 3 games for the day, and we had to stay in that uniform sometimes for hour and a half. Then if you play in one tournament, you cannot go back into the next tournament. So like how the national teams, senior men or women, if you play, you could play in the tournament for 4 or 5 years. No, if you play the first year, you cannot go back the second year, but you can go back as a coach or a manager, because it's all about development and getting persons off the streets, off drugs. Because in that tournament, basically in places like the United States, in that tournament you have men who, and I'm talking about good football players, big men who have problems with family, who is under the influence of alcohol, who who mentally challenged. So when you go based on who you're playing, like I was seeing a school line on the GFA chat, 18 goals to nil, 18 goals to 1 this week, and this was a no-no in the tournament. Why? Because sometimes on certain teams you have mentally challenged people, and when you give them that amount of goals, what the coordinators tell you is that this could trigger off the person again, because they've been so humiliated that you give them 18 to nothing, and we were asked to, if we score 5 goals or 6 goals and we realize the team is under, don't score more, but give them the opportunity to come and score a goal, really, to make them feel happy, and we did it in a game, and we could have seen the joy of the teams when you really play to and you give them the opportunity to score that goal, how happy they were in scoring. So all in all, we had our challenges there, and I must say thanks and kudos to the Jason Roberts Foundation for giving us the opportunity to be part of such tournament, and to give the youngsters the opportunity of traveling through Andre Patterson, who I know worked very, very hard in getting things organized to make sure that the guys, have what it takes to go there and represent Grenada. So Mike, when I came back, I remember we lost to the United States in Scotland in the finals, and I was saying, Grenada, I think I am one of the only coach who beat some of the big countries in football, because it's a World Cup, and I come back happy saying, hey, I beat Germany, I beat Brazil in a football match, not notwithstanding, it's just the homeless World Cup, but just proud of being there representing Grenada. The boys have done well. I must say thanks to people like Travis Rennie, um, Mario. There's that young man Mario, Kurt Alexander from Grand Roy, Damien
And they
also from Grand Roy.
they were participants, right? They were participants.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
these are some of the players that really travel with us, and I know represented well. Kenny Francois, Voss Robinson. These are top players in in the GFA football Premier League level, who really went out there and represent Grenada to the fullest. So I must say thanks, Mike. It was a great experience. And hope that it's sad that we don't do it anymore. I don't know what was the challenge there, but hope that sometime soon we will be back on the scene, representing Grenada again through the Homeless World Cup.
Yeah, I think they have a tournament scheduled for 2021, and hopefully, as you said, that it's something that Grenada can participate in as well, because which is really geared towards, changing the lives and changing perceptions and attitudes towards homelessness, and as you indicated, if for someone hearing just homeless, they believe that homeless as as it is indicated being homeless, but as you said, there are criteria,
That's right.
and in the Grenada context, many of the youngsters fell into that category because, as you indicated, whether it's lack of running water, these things are considered into the homeless, you know, and also the experiencing of different cultures as well. That was an important part for the youngsters. Well, what we do now, we
Yes, Mike.
just take.
Before you go, Mike, before you go, I must say too, even when we played in Amsterdam, I remember we were singing some of the Grenada soca music. Ron Pear, Ron Pear was that guy who had the team chanting, singing the so, the Grenada soca, and they were asking, where you from? So we were saying Grenada, and the people, they were wondering, where is Grenada? So I had to say, you remember Kirani James, you know. So I use Kirani James as 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 a landmark for persons in Europe really to know where Grenada is, because that time Kirani James was doing well on the on the athletic scene. So I had to use Kirani James, and we were chanting. And normally when Grenada have to play, you get, because they were male and female teams there. And we were getting some of the ladies and the men from the other teams to come, because we were warming up, let's say about 3 minutes away from the actual playing area. And we used to chant like the South Africans. South Africa, they was doing very well. And we were chanting and singing in the first day to the ground. And the second day of the tournament, they offered Team Grenada a drummer. So the drummer was there beating the drum, and Grenada was dancing onto the field of play for every match. So we became one of the favorite. And after the tournament, we were named the best newcomer of the tournament. We received that plaque for the best newcomer of the tournament in Amsterdam in 2017.
Okay. Okay, well, what we'll do, we just take a short break, and then we'll be right back in just probably 30 seconds. Okay, welcome back to Talk Sports, and as we indicated, we are speaking with Kelvin and Sherry Ann Hector, the Hectors, as we will say, in this edition of Talk Sports, the Saturday Sports Special, to be exact. And as we said, that we're looking at the families and those who have been directly involved in sports somewhere or the other, whether it's at the community level, whether it's at the national level, and their impact, how it has also been challenging to them and their family, the upbringing of their families, and what do they think about families getting involved in sports. So let's continue with the discussion, and it has to do with this time, what sort of encouragement would you give to the spouses like you, husband and wife, who are somewhere or the other either involved and we may not know, or those who are thinking of getting involved in sports somewhere or the other? What sort of advice would you give them? What should they know about, based on their experience? What should they know if they happen to be involved or trying to get involved in sports, that the challenges that they will come upon, some of the things that they may have to sacrifice, it's up to you. Let's hear what you have to say. Probably,
I will
I
let
know Sherry.
I will
I
let
know
the
Sherry
wife
will
go
have.
first.
Well, I know Sherry will have her say about that.
I would firstly like to say, as remember, marriage, just like everything, is a partnership, and support each other. Quarreling about somebody who loves something, genuinely have a passion, it doesn't help anybody. I think if you support and respect each other, that I think goes a long way. Because my passion now, I tell everybody, I love football, I love reading, and I love my family, especially my husband. So I always would support him no matter what. I mean, it's not every day you feel like putting up with football, but at the end of the day, if it makes him happy, why steal that simple joy from something? I mean, he go in and watch football, he go in and play football, he go in and run lines. At the beginning was with refereeing. So that's his passion. Why take that away from him? Because I love reading, and if you take away my Kindle, ask him. Recently, the Kindle got wet accidentally by him. I almost died because that is my passion. So support your spouse, be it your husband, be it your wife, and your whole life would be easier. And you can always use it as a guilt trip. Say, you see, I'm making you go behind your football, so you have to do what I want to do. So you use it.
And Kelvin?
Mike, she's quite correct. I remember her visit to Grenada just before we got married. Actually, I used to be part of officiating and so forth at the time. And sometimes on Sundays, I have games at Queen's Park. I have no transportation, so I had to get myself by the road early enough to see if I can hike a ride down to Queen's Park. And she always want to be there. And I remember one Sunday she wanted to come, and I knew it was challenging. The weather wasn't at its best, and she really wanted to come. And I did stop a truck, and unfortunately she could not have made it up. So I had to, stay and relax myself and see if I get something else. And we had a little. You see, you make me miss that ride. And she will come at the Kings Park with her book, sit down against the stadium, read for the whole game, and after the game, asking me what is the score. You know, Mike, and I used to say, well, you come in to look at the game. Why walk with your book? But as she said, that's her passion, that's her love, and you must respect that. Um, but all in all, I really appreciate her being there in one sense because Mike, when I traveled the first time, knowing that I had a newborn and I have to live 2 months after, I cannot wait to leave the plane area to come back to have a little phone conversation where I can see my little baby there, just lying. And it continues for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, where as soon as I get back, I want to make sure that my family's okay and everybody's all right. Thanks to my mom, she did a wonderful job. My dad also he always asks the question. I remember one time Happy was playing North Stars in one of the GFA finals at Queen's Park, and then I said I was going down there, and Mike, at that time I think you could have come to Happy Hill and still anything. The support for Happy Hill was tremendous. One gentleman I must call his name this afternoon. May his soul rest in peace. Mr. Harris. That's the husband of Miss Harris. That's the shop next to the secondary school.
Right.
Tremendous supporter. Always give encouragement. Always say to me, Coco, you're higher belly. Because sometimes when you think things wasn't going right and I should give up, he still give me that encouragement. He still give that contribution. He still make that support. Still, today the wife is still doing it. Whenever we have a game, if we want a case of water, if we want any little cash to get anything, the Harris family with Dishon and Dassel still come forward and lend that support. So I want to say hats off to them. Um, if you don't have that family support, Mike, you wouldn't get nowhere. I can tell you that. My son, he's not playing as yet, but I have a 17-year-old who wants to be a goalkeeper. He wants to be a striker. He wants to be a defender. He wants to be an athlete. He 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 wants to be everything, and I give him that support. I give him that. Um, he goes to the St. David's Catholic Secondary School. If you look at Intercall, he tries, and I always say that he tries. So all in all, Mike, the family support is key. Whenever I play, or whenever we go out and we have that big game, my family is there. Once we reach penalty kicks, then you will realize that my wife is a coward. She don't like the penalty kicks. You know, and Mike, I am missing two very good players who still calls and who give support tremendously to the team. That's Anil Jones and Kiwani London. They are both in the United States. And I must say that these two guys make me happy. Even though they are not here, I always follow them and always call and find out how they are doing. He always call and find out how we're doing. So, Mike, when you have persons who make you happy after you have done so much for the sport, you think personally you have done well.
Mhm.
If you don't have that, then you tell yourself you have failed. But I personally think that I have been blessed in helping some persons. I still feel I have failed in certain ways. I still think I can improve in many ways in helping young people. I no longer play the sport, but I more do like managing part and assisting in certain things in the back. In the. My team at work, I manage both the cricket and football. Happy here. If I am called to officiate in any tournament, I spearhead the officiating team. It's all about now giving back for free. I don't really I didn't benefit from any monetary or you know financial gains or anything because I was just speaking to my uncle a while ago and I said he's in the United States, so I say, hey, I will be on TalkSports. He said, well, you're big up, man. You could build your house cash now. you know so I did text back and say, man, it's all for free, it's all for the love. And I want to thank you very much, Mike, for giving us the opportunity for to be on the program. It's, as I said, when you reach a certain stage and you realize you are appreciated for the hard work and for the effort. It make you want to go another 3-4 years, and
Yeah, well,
continue helping.
yeah, well, that is part of what it is about in terms of recognizing because unfortunately, I don't think, and that's my personal view, right? I don't think that our sportsmen and sportswomen, whether administrators or who, receive that level of recognition in Grenada in particular, especially for the sort of contribution they make, to the development of sports. And I keep saying that in the context of amateurism, where sports is basically amateur and depending a lot on volunteers, that I believe that much more can be done in terms of recognizing and showing some level of appreciation to those who have done human service, especially at the community and village levels. Most times we look at just the national, but to come at the national level, you must have come from somewhere, whether it's the village or the community. And I want to thank you and your wife for the that sort of um, togetherness and inspiration that you would have brought to sports at in the village of Happy Hill. And hopefully that when the time comes and Sherry says that I think we had enough, that there will be others who will be willing to continue in the footsteps, but based on how things going, I don't see that as something in the immediate future, because it seems as if despite the challenges that you folks are still inspired by the potential of our youngsters, and especially with Kelvin Jr. on the horizon. I'm certain you'll want to see that Kelvin
Mike,
gets Kelvin gets into the fray.
Mike, he's a challenger. He's very upbeat. He's very excited. He this guy is not easy. He's not easy to deal with, but he keep me alive. He keep me alive. He keep me alive. And that's his
Uh,
mom. That's her pet also.
That's his father's child. He wants to be involved in everything.
So
uh, what would you say, folks, and being candid enough, regarding the Grenada Football Association? I know Sherry, to an extent, has some involvement because of her, past experience in terms of managing and things. So she may be able to speak a little on that. And then you, Kelvin, in terms of trying to get, as part of the Happy Hill, football team. Um, and I've asked a question in light of recent past. It has been a bit tumultuous, in terms of a lot of turmoil within the Grenada Football Association, and some folks believe it would have affected, the sort of relationship between the FA, that's the GFA, and its affiliates. But in your assessment, do you think things have now returned to some level of normalcy, and there's the potential for probably 2021 that football can move back to where it was in previous years?
Okay, in regards to the GFA and the normalcy, well, first thing, with the entrance of COVID-19, the new normal will continue. But in reference to GFA and the conference football, GFA would always have the issues because of what I spoke earlier of personalities and not putting football first. And also, I personally think some persons, after they start to say they've been in football for 50 something years, could step back. Because if you're there 50 something years and things have not changed, it's time to step back. Because the the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So GFA on its whole, like I say, it's about personalities, people not liking one another and not going about the business of football. And that is what we always have to remember. That is the sport and the young persons we are trying to encourage in the sport to carry on the sport. It's not about what me or what I like and who I don't like. It's not about that. It's about football and doing the best for football. So if the best thing for football sometimes is for you to step back, if you like the game, you would step back.
Yeah, Mike. My take on it. I can also share the same view, sentiment also like Sherry Ann. I have been a council member for Happy Hill FC for roughly 15 years, and I have seen things change. So many changes. I've seen so many changes. I have worked with President Ram Folks. I have worked with President Maguire. I have worked with Jenny Joseph. And it's always been that challenging where once money came in. Right? I remember working with Ashley Ram Folks at Gates when we have our international games in Tantine and so forth. And Carl Phillip, Kelly Patrick, these were persons on the executive. And we, myself and Eve, Carly Fraser, Mr. James from Cloget, Mr. Braffett from also that area, we were responsible for like gates and so forth. And we used to make sure, well, for a matter of fact, I think we knew who the ex-national players were. So when we have international games, we will see people like Bob Whitehood coming in, Pele from Fontenoy, and who most of the senior persons. And we never used to accept cash, and we never used to make them pay to come to watch football because we personally think they have done well and in representing Grenada then. And clubs now get 3 tickets for every game, every international game the clubs get 3 tickets. And some of the persons, sometimes you see them outside. I remember Dougie sometimes come to the stadium and have to give, the police might have to be, you know, coming on to him for giving a little trouble because he want to get into the park. And I'm saying that to say, in our time when Grenada playing and Dougie come to Tantine, he don't have to pay. He just walking in the gate, because he represent. And that has changed. Uh, Persons now in the executive, I could say that is on one side. The executive is 2 sides now. You have the Cheney side and you have the Voodoo side and you have the Who side, and I mean that is not good for football. I am not afraid to say it. It is not good. Even good things might be put on the table for the sport, and because of push that who pushed the whole thing forward, it has been shut down by the other side because of who put that motion forward. So I think at that, because of that, now they have the conference where the conference have a president and the president will choose who they carry to an executive meeting. The Premier League go as a club individually, but based on the presidents of the conference, what you get happening there is that if the president is for one side, they carry clubs that is against that president or that person based on election time, or if you have to have any big voting on any event or what. So I think that is a big hinder for the sport. But I must give both Cheney and Budo kudos for being there. I mean, the football have its challenges, but I think not bad. These guys they don't mean bad for the sport, but I think that personal thing need to sort it out and try and see how we can take football forward. If we don't do that, I think we're gonna be way down the ladder in the next few years when it comes to national teams in the sense of the youths especially. If we don't take that mandate to really get together and start working together as a team, because you can't tell me come out on the field as a team to play in your tournament and you as a body, you're not together. So if you're not together from the head, then you know what is going to happen at the ending of the day. So all in all, Mike, I think they need to sort that out. We need to get things back in place where everybody's on the same page, everybody working for the development of football, and I think that will help us maybe in the near future where everybody everybody is on one stage singing the same song. So I must say kudos to Chenny. I must say kudos to Budu and the rest of the executive members really. But we just need to put things in place and come together as a team.
Yeah, well, I think that's has been the overriding consensus that the personality issue is one that has derided the value of the GFA in particular. And if, as you indicated, once they can get over this personality issue, that quite a lot could be achieved for football in Grenada. But in going forward, and then you mentioned something there regarding the whole structure now, especially when it comes to meetings. Okay, Premier League represented, but when it comes to the conference, the president, there's a president or whatever it is. So that has now changed up where teams in the conference they don't really have a voice then.
You're quite correct because every conference normally takes two clubs into a meeting. So three persons represent every conference. There are four conferences, and the president choose two of their clubs in that conference really to go to the meeting. So, for example, if like on election, if you have a president based on who the conference president support, you know what is going to happen there where when the election comes. So, but basically that's not sometimes it's not the idea of the rest of clubs in the conference. You understand what I'm saying? If you, for example, if you have 5 teams or 6 teams in a conference and 4 teams says, okay, we think Cheney is doing a good job, or four says, I think Budu is doing a good job, and the president of that conference says, I don't think Cheney is doing a good job, and the 2 teams say, I don't think so too. This is basically what is going to happen. They normally takes that 2 teams who said, I don't think Cheney is doing that good job, or I don't think Budu is doing that good job. So let us go with that 2 teams because we know they is not going to vote or support the president on way off in previous years where each club have a vote. It's no longer like that. So I think this is the challenge we have where sometimes you have good things going, but based on personality and for who you love and support, all could just fall in one shake.
And that was something that was discussed, agreed, and approved by council.
By
That
council.
structure.
Yes, you're quite correct. But I think when they realize the impact, how negative it could be, it could affect the whole sport. I think they really wish they had never been or they never thought of that whole scenario there.
Do you foresee something like that being changed in the near future?
I personally believe it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea because you can easily just change the whole structure of sports in less than no time. Every club before I know the presidents and his slates used to go around in every club to club and present their whole as they say the manifesto towards football and every club will sit down and reason and ask for certain things and ask what you're going to do for football, what is your plans for football, and you know, well, okay, you don't know who you're voting for. You will go there because both presidents will come, sit down, talk to you, but nobody know who you're really going to vote for. Now it's easy to identify who is voting for who. Yeah, at a general council meeting, from the time you sit there, you know, well, hey, the score is 21-5 because these are the 5 clubs that is going to support this guy, and that's the next 19 wouldn't support. So right away there, you know the outcome of it, which I think is it's very sad. And then you're telling me now, oh, we have that secret ballot. Why it could be secret ballot when you already know who are for you and who against you? It's better you just vote by just a raise of hand. Hey, who for blue? Put up your hand and you will just get, 5 persons, and who for Chen, you just get 7, who for Budu put 7, and who for Chen put 5. It's right in front of you, and which is so sad for the sports. I don't think that is right.
Well, thanks for bringing that in terms of clarity to the attention, to our attention, I should say, and something that the president may want to speak about in detail on the program come next Saturday. It appears that quite a lot has to be done in terms of within the ranks of the Grenada Football Association. As we say, probably COVID may have quelled some of the internal wranglings for a while. Hopefully it's quelled for quite a while, because it wasn't good. It was an ugly, scene.
You're quite right.
An ugly scene, and I thought at times you will find, one side is having a media conference, and then within hours another side having a media. No, that's not sports development. That wasn't sports development. It made good reading, it was good posture for the media, and things like that. So those in the media probably, and myself to an extent, probably would have enjoyed, the bantering at times, but when you look at the seriousness, in terms of development, it didn't augur well, because as Sherry indicated earlier, in the final analysis, the sportsmen and sportswomen who are the ones that have been affected, because the administrators can decide to get up and go anytime they want, turn their backs. But then we have the young ones with tremendous opportunities and potential are the ones who normally affected. So how do you, and we may be repeating it again, but with all that you have been saying there, how do you hope that your plans, your intentions in terms of developing sports, and particularly football, because that's your area of concentration, will be fruitful, because you have to work with an association as the Grenada Football Association, where, as indicated, a lot of personalities, and sometimes if people believe that if they're not directly involved, then it cannot happen. Whereas, probably given the support, something that probably I want Sherry to talk as well, and you as well. How do you intend to get the GFA and those who are the decision makers to buy into what you're hoping to achieve at the community level?
Well, for me, with Happy Hill, with the young ones, I personally would like to see us grow into what it used to be. I hope to help foster this group of young men up to be part of the football team, as well as to be part of the football club, to bring something not only on the field but off the field. I'm hoping that when we have our proper structure, that the GFA would see that clubs are fighting to make this base so they can get their act together. Because, like rightly said, if the GFA do not get their act together, we as a country, Grenada, are going to get left behind. I have seen it where St. Vincent and Barbados are doing tremendous jobs because their football associations and their executives are strong. And it is time that Grenada get in line with that. Sometimes when we travel, I feel embarrassed when I hear the things that St. Vincent, and when I listen to football here in Grenada, St. Vincent was way behind Grenada football wise. And now they are right there because their executives are taking charge. And people are doing it for the football and not about the politics and who like and who you support. So I am hoping that Happy Hill and all the football clubs strengthen their bases, strengthen their clubs, and hopefully be able to show the FA that we are doing our part. So you all must step up so that football on the whole, because if the clubs are strong, then our national programs are going to be even stronger. And that is where we make the impact. So we must get things right. And the clubs and therefore the FA have to step up to do their part to make Grenada football what it used to be and what it can become.
And yeah, Kelvin, I want you to respond to that, but also in that, in terms of talent, in terms of potential, you see that, you know, despite what is happening at the administrative level, and you know, we're not saying all doom and gloom for the GFA in terms of the administration, but, and it's just like any other organization, you do have challenges with administrators, but on the field of play, you see Grenada with the talent that can take it further in the Caribbean.
I can say 60%, 60% of that really in the sense of talent. We don't have. I'm not seeing. I shouldn't say we don't have. I'm not seeing that large group of players where you could say, well, right, this is it. This is for. And you're not getting that consistent set of players. I remember when I used to play in my days. For example, we had people like, I just want to put a few names on record. Nixon Modest, Patty Modest, Ricky Charles, Kenneth Murray, Chris Bain. These I remember these few names here, right? Miguel Warwood, Adrian Scott. These guys played recently. I think Kitson Bain. These guys played football. Let's say from the 13 level, national football under 30, national football under 50, national football under 70, national football under 19, under 23, and grab to the level. Like if you understand where I'm coming from, if you look players now, you will never see a guy, or you might see him at under 17, lost his way from 17 to 23, and then become a national player at 25. Then you might see a 13-year-old, 13, 17, and you mightn't see him again. But the names I have called is persons I have seen go through that channel, one level to the next, and did well. And you are not seeing that now. I am not saying we don't have, but you might see, let me call a name there. I think it was Mark from St. Andrews. I think he was a police officer. Then we had Dennis Rennie.
It's Rennie. Yeah.
We had a guy named I can't remember his name, but he goes, I think Puntans, we call him Puntans. And these guys had two excellent years of football at a late age, but you never saw them, or if they was there, they was not as at a junior level. We have one female player that come to mind, Judy McIntosh. Is that something, Sherry? Judy McIntosh.
Yeah, Judy.
She
Yeah.
played. She played like under 17, under 19, under 20, and onto the senior team. So you're not seeing that players now going through that channel. There is one young man I see now who I love, and I using the word love to see play. I don't know his correct name, his first name, but I think he's an Alexander, and that's his father is Bubbles. Bubbles in Montmorency. I think he's one of the senior. He's one of the junior coaches now. He coached
Yeah.
one of the national team. His son compose, and I just wish and I hope he can do well in the school because of how like my personal, I identify this young man to become a very good player if he stick to the task. But other than that, it's like some guy like maybe as we say in music, you come out with a one hit wonder. So you see them this year and next year, you know. You're not seeing them. That consistency, that discipline. Mike, I used to run from Harpil to Gov. I used to ride a bike from Harpil to Gov to go train with Becos. And in those days you had people like Desmond Monroe, Selwyn Paul, Tigis Bernard, Kenton, Gavi Wilson. These guys playing for the national team, and you can get a chance. You're talking about you can make that level, but the commitment and the passion. No, you hardly see football players running the road. You hardly see football players in the playing field doing individual work. I can say BJ and his son. You could see them in Queens Park off and on, or if it's not on a regular basis, doing personal training. If you pass in Progress Park in Grenville, St. Andrews, anytime during the week, even on Sundays, you will see some organization there. Somebody's there with either 2 kids, 3 kids doing something. When you pass in some of the other grounds, it's empty. So you're
Well,
not seeing. Go ahead, Mike.
for now, there may be the excuse that COVID, would have wrecked, some of those plans. I'm not saying that it is the excuse, but I know that sometimes they do indicate that well, as not sometimes, of recent, the blame has been put on because of COVID. You're not seeing people out in the playing field. You two will know better. I'm just saying what I've been hearing, the feedback I've been getting, and I assume they're telling me that because I'm not in Grenada, but you probably will know better, because while they're saying that, some of them still finding themselves at the parties, but let me hear from you.
Mike, my little knowledge. I remember Grenada had an international game. Jason Roberts and Byron Bob were here for 2 weeks before the game. And when you go to Grandans, these guys running the road every day. Jason was a professional player. Byron, I think, was maybe semi-professional if he reached that level. But if you take a page from Byron Bob's book, he was not an international player, but the quality of football you get from that young man, and you ask yourself now, Everybody is in front of the television on a Saturday, for example, looking at football. And who a t-shirt mark Ronaldo, Messi, Rashford. But how they give themselves a name because call Zidane. But that's because he loves Zidane. They call him Zidane. But when you only Zidane, Zidane. So if you really want to emulate someone or you want to be like someone, you can want to be and don't show off what you're seeing. And this is my biggest challenge here. Two passes. If you watch international football, one touch, two touches, pass off. You watch that week in, week out, international, and you come in and play a local game, and you want to take the ball here and run as far as Queens Park, you alone, and you're watching football every day. What you watching football for? You understand? So they're not really taking that example. They're not watching the football to say, well, okay, I am looking at the sport and I will improve or I will develop. You just watch the game, Manchester playing Man City, and you just sit down and you're just watching a game because Manchester and Man City playing. What, as a young player, what have you learned from that game?
Well, it's a and it's the point that Sherry was making at the start when she was talking about, it's not just playing, it's not just administrating, but also explaining, to them everything that is involved somewhere or the other, even the laws of the game. Because, I was speaking to Nat Simpson last week, and he made a similar point as you there in terms of, getting these players to understand the basics, at an early age, and I recall I was with the Grenada team some years ago. It may have been at a World Cup. I can't recall, but whatever it is, Ali DeBellot was the coach. And he gave a player, a substitute, a message to pass on to a player on the field. And the player actually convey something totally different to what Ali DeBellot as the coach passed on, to the amazement of the player who had to receive the message. In that, I think was something that occurred, and when he came to the sideline, Ali said, "But I said so and so," and he said, "No, but he told," and it just brings the point that if they do not understand the game, they do not understand, what they part of, it will be difficult for them, to play and to understand play. And it's surprising that was a national player, but then again, that's what you have. That's
exactly,
probably the best that you have at the time, But I'm glad you made that point because, it's their understanding. And I want now to divert to Sherry to a bit because what it is you're seeing among the women, the young girls, because they're showing interest. I know FIFA, for example, has diverted a lot of funds to women's football. If you want to get funding, an association wants to get funding for football, I think once you say women, somehow FIFA is directing quite a chunk of money towards that funding towards women's football. But are you seeing that level of interest, that level of commitment, the willingness to be trained and interest among females, Sherry?
All right. Women football, like you say, is on the uh, upward move. But in Grenada, like other small Caribbean countries, our pool is very small with girls who are interested in football and splitting their time. Because the same girl who's playing football is because she's very sporty, would be the same girl playing netball, the same girl running track and field. If there's a girls basketball team, she'll be on that as well. So our biggest problem sometimes is the competition from other sports. And I think what I try to tell the girls is choose the sport and focus on the one that can get you the furthest to your goal. Because what we try to encourage them about is that football is the gateway to a scholarship and your education. So you focus on the field. The girls, I can say, like Kelvin, we have a lot of the girls who started at under 14, move up to U17, U20, and into the senior teams. So you have seen the growth. You get the same issues like the boys, that some of them not wanting to train or think they are stars after they reach U17. But as an administrator and as a manager, I always tell them, look at when we go out there and you see the other teams and the level they are, the type of commitment, and you try to emulate that. That is what we're going for. Don't think, well, oh, I reached the big national team. No. And the same problem we have with girls here that Kelvin and having. The girls are young, 19, 20, and they tell me, say, I ain't playing football anymore. I grow out that. When I had the opportunity through GFA to go to France for the Women's World Cup, the age of most of the teams were women over 25. And yet still we have 17 and 18-year-olds saying they're too old for football. America team, their players were 13. So we have to come out of that mentality that when you reach 19, 20, you can't play football. That is when you have to focus even more and train so you can move up. So I can tell you with the girl women football, once we continue to get coaches that can coach the teams, because that is a very important part. Although I'm involved in the management, but you must have coaches that can coach. Because sometimes you have coaches, but they cannot coach it. So we must have coaches that can coach and encourage the girls to move that next step and that to get that type of training to move up and improve themselves. And not only on the field, but off the field. Because that is something that we were trying to teach the girls how you carry yourself about, how you speak, the tone you use. Because all these little things come into play when you travel with a team and an interview. And sometimes the girls and them they freeze up. They don't know what to say. They can't speak. They're afraid to speak in a crowd. And the football is one thing on the field, but off the field, we must focus on all these little things. So
Yeah.
that I think, women's football is growing,
Mhm.
and in Grenada, we have the potential. Our pool is smaller, but we have what it takes.
Um, Good point, and especially on the issue of public speaking, something we'll talk a little more on. But I want to bring a point there from Lincoln Toro Depredine. You're right, man, and I assume you're referring to you, Kelvin, a point you made. He says football, cricket, basketball, and any team sport are boring unless there are individual skilled players. You go to a game today, and most players are dependent on a big shot from outside or a penalty to score a goal. Few show the inability to dribble and beat in the penalty area and score. So he's really referring to skills there. That's Toro Deputy bringing his thought into, and obviously Toro will push in the likes of the Hostin and Barry James and others who would have played for Carnage in the early days. But Sherry, getting back to your point, because it's important, and I think it's not just women's football, but it's football in a whole in terms of involvement, and as you indicated, that some of those youngsters, and I even think cricket to an extent has had that experience with girls being involved, thinking at the age of 18, 19, and even 20, they consider themselves too old to be involved in sports. But how do you think you can get these youngsters in terms of the changing of attitude, the changing of lifestyle, the mentality to be more involved in the sport? And in this case, we're referring to football. How do you think you can attract them into that? I know it's a challenge, and you explained that, your experience in terms of going to the World Cup and seeing those players, in the late 20s and even 30s. The USA is a team, for example, with a lot of senior and mature women playing the football, and surprisingly, they matching up to the youngsters. But how do you think we can get that message across to those youngsters in Grenada?
Well, some of the issues we face here is the same issues all other teams face, whether Caribbean, international. And whilst at that World Cup, I had the opportunity to meet other. I met a administrator in those Pan-Asian countries, and she had this great idea, and I came here and I spoke to them about it. Where trying football, they started a mother and daughter league. And in this league, they have older women where they encourage the mothers and the daughters to come out and play football. When she showed me the results of it, it was tremendous because you had these leagues where they come out to train, and sometimes because as a parent, you might think, oh, I have a child, I can't play anymore. So by having it prepared where it's both the mothers and the daughters, aunts and nieces, where we coming to play, so it introduces that competitiveness again, and you get them playing. And that is the part with women football. The more women play football, the bigger the game is, the better they get at it, and you get more people coming out. Because you're seeing, because when she showed us, she said because it had some mothers, because it's a Pan Asian, so it's a little place. So because they're like 21, they may have a child, but that doesn't mean their football can stop. They come out with their daughters and they play the game. So I think something like that we can encourage here in Grenada and show the young ladies that football doesn't end because you have a family or you because of a certain age. Once you keep your fitness and your ability to play the game, you can keep playing. Because fathers have kids and they still play football. So why women must stop because you have a child or you think you're too big? So I think that's why we need to have a tournament or something showing it is okay. So then you feel comfortable playing the game.
Okay. Well, many years ago, in the community of River Road, where I'm from, around Mother's Day, you have the netball, mothers against daughters, and then you have around Father's Day, you have the football, fathers against sons. I think it may be a challenge for you, the Hectors, to have something in Bush's show, probably around Mother's Day, Father's Day, to bring that back, whether it's football, whether it's netball, whatever it is, get the girls out, the mothers and the daughters and the aunts and whoever it is, get them out, let them play. It's a fun thing, but it's probably by way of introduction, some of them into the sport, getting them to see how it's, whatever the involvement in it. And as well as probably Father's Day, getting the fathers and the sons and, the uncles and out and get them out and playing as well. It's probably a challenge for you. The Hectors, I put that in your lap for 21. I hope that's something you can think about. But it's but I like the whole idea, of you trying to get them, Sherry, to understand the values involved in and through sports, the opportunities now, especially where we know that the traditional scholarships sometimes hard to come by, and through sports you probably may be able to get something that can change your life forever, you know. And we have seen how um, many of our youngsters who have gone on, whether it's through athletics, through basketball, and in some cases through football, have been able to get scholarships, go have an education, and in turn, how it has changed their lives, how they have been able to return and support their families, and in some instances make a contribution, you know, to sports, you know. I think Judy Smith is saying, yes, very good idea. I'm not sure if Judy is from that village, but I think it's something that you probably can think about. I know it's off the cuff, but I hope the Hectors can give some consideration to that.
Mike, what I can assure you is that come 2021, fathers versus non-fathers will be at Busheshu page. You know, I had this in mind for many years, but to put it forward sometimes, you know, is always a challenge. But seeing that the way things are going now, where most people recreation seems to be a little bit more on the low, you need to get some because even me, it's a little bit weighty at this point, so a little bit heavy now. My son, I he's telling me my belly is the best pillow in the bedroom at this moment. So
But it's I'm seeing here that Toro is saying, he's coming back to say, and it's a point that we're making there now, that the age thing and thinking too old to do something cut across sports and culture in the Caribbean. As you say, fellas and girls retire from playing pan early. And the first time I realized that guys played football into their 30s and 40s was when I was in Jamaica, and Manchester, you know, visited, that's United visited, and I saw some bald head fellas playing for Manu. And probably we can even go further to say that even when West Indies in the 70s, you know, the cricket team, the guys, a little more mature than even the guys who are playing West Indies cricket now. You know, when you look at when the Lloyd and the Sobers and the Viv Richards and others were playing, I'm not sure about the age at the time, but very mature, you know, and not the young thing, as Toro was saying, the age thing or the young ones that we are seeing now, you know. But the age thing seems to be something that is bothering sports, not just in Grenada, but in the Caribbean. And I'm hoping that through your initiatives, as you're saying, bringing the fathers and the non-fathers, probably the mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, and, you know, bringing them out to be part of those initiatives probably can just revive sports and physical education to an extent, because I think it's cutting both sides, you know, physical education, very important, and through sports, physical education. But as we get ready to wrap up with about just 5 more minutes remaining, um, I'm sorry, Kelvin, but I think Sherry is dominating the discussion now, because she's touching on some very important issues there as it relates to, you know, women's involvement in sports. Sherry, and not just on the field of play, but how do you think you can get them to be part of administration, management, something like what you are doing? We see sometimes, most times, or in most times, most cases, it seems to be a male dominated aspect when it comes to management. You, I think Michelle Huckleys, who I interviewed some time ago, would have probably, you know, made some headways in terms of being a manager of a male team back in the 80s when Ambrose Phillip was around. But, you know, how do you think you can encourage more women to come forward and be part of it. I think within the last few years, we have seen more women being involved, even at the level of administration, well, at the GFA in particular. But how you think you can encourage more of the young ladies to get involved?
Okay, well, I can say I was part of an all-women staff because with our last we had Coach Alana Francois, assistant coach Ariba. So we were part of a group of women. How I can encourage women, I can tell them one, it's a first thing, I don't understand why more women don't get involved because women are natural planners. And as an administrator, that's what you need. Be able to plan so women can become more involved by just coming out, giving of yourself, expecting any financial reward, anything large, but just doing it. And you must love and young people because the biggest joy for me is whenever we play a game because and these young ladies would always tell me manage, you know, I listen your voice alone. We would be in Trinidad playing against Trinidad and you would hear Trinidad fans bawling whatever. My players would up and they say, manager, hearing you all, Rohan, Judy, Judy. She said, manage your voice is something. She said, we miss you whenever you're not in the stands. Because you have to like the game, love the players. Because when, as a manager, you become a mother, a doctor, social worker, psychiatrist, because you have to listen. And because most of these girls, once you just love, because I love my players as if they are my own. When something is wrong with them, I cry with them and I worry because after I would make sandwiches, juice, who hungry, because as soon as they see me, their favorite word, manage me hungry. So you have to be able to give of yourself. So don't come into this thinking, oh, I want to be in the football because I want to travel. I have traveled with teams and have not seen anything other than the hotel room and a football field. Because I'm the first person up on mornings and the last person to bed. Because you
I know
have to be.
I know the challenges involved in that. Traveling with national teams for the better part of 15 years or so. I know that managers, what it takes for managers, sometimes the first to be there, and in some cases the last to leave sometimes because you have to ensure so many things are in place. Finally, as we get ready to wrap up with just about 2 minutes remaining, do you think that more families, and I'm saying that in the context of Grenada, in terms of families' involvement in sports, in terms of when you go to the playing fields and you see kids playing, whether the mother and the father they are around, seeing them, encouraging them, being part of that. Is that something prevalent? Is that something lacking? Is that something we need to see more of?
I am. I always ask for that. Always ask for parents to come out and support the children. Right? Come out, look at your son play, look at your daughters play. You could actually identify some of the parents who is going to be there when the children play. Like if my son have an athletic meet, sometime when I leave the stadium, I'm host because I shouting for my son so much. You understand? And this is what it is. When he finish one, I try to meet him at the closest point. Hey, well done. Good job. You could do this, you could have done that, you could have moved a little early, move a little late. little encouragement. When you don't do that, sometimes your children tell you they're going in football, mommy, I have training. And because you're not interested, they're not in training.
Mm-hmm.
They're somewhere else. Huh?
Yeah.
This is the sad part. Mom, we have training today. And sometimes my wife phone ring. What time training finish? And I hear she telling the parent, but we didn't have any training today. So your daughter leave home saying they have training and there is no training. Or your son leave home saying he have training and there is no training. Because why? You're not that interested in being there to see what your son is doing or what your daughter is doing. You understand? And this is it. But at the ending of the day, Mike, it is what it is. We need to improve and we just need to improve. We need to get certain things done. We need to get it done. And I hate the word going back to the drawing board. We've been going back to the drawing. I've been hearing this word every single tournament, every single session. Oh, we have to go back to the drawing board. How much drawing board we have? You understand? Let us move forward and try to help in the development of the sport. Because when we leave, Mike, the sport is still going to be there. So whatsoever we could give before we passed on, let us give it to the young men. Sometimes it's not all. Mike, to be honest, I spend so much money into Happy Health. My personal money. Doing things for players, helping players, and you get nothing in return. But at the ending of the day, is because you love what you do. You enjoy, and you just go and lie down in the night. Sometimes I lie down, I think, I laugh. Sometimes I don't sleep properly based on if we team play a game and I'm not satisfied with the effort we make. I ask myself, where do we go wrong? And my wife will be lying there. And sometimes every time I turn, she turns because I'm there. And I just not comfortable sleeping. So I try to go back the next day or the next 2 days and try to fix it. And sometimes I always say, we played a game and we lose. And sometimes I am so happy because we lost. Because of the effort, I am happy. And sometimes we play a game and we win. And I am more upset with the guys of winning that game more than the game we lost. You understand? So it's all about being happy and satisfying with the effort. You making an effort, so you want to see the younger persons make that effort. So on that note, Mike, I want to say thank you very much for having us. It was a pleasure. And I hope in the future we will be back here to say our son is playing football, or he can be part of the interview saying that, you know, I was there the first time. I was there the first time and I am here now.
Yeah, yeah. This time we'll be able to see Kelvin Jr. because by then Kelvin will be able to say something more in terms of his involvement. But I want to thank both of you. It has been a pleasure. And Sherry, thank you once again for your involvement and your steadfastness in terms of trying to get the young ladies in particular, because as we indicated, we have to look at them in terms of their future. We don't want it to be a lost generation, as some may say for now, but thank you for that effort. And I hope that you folks can continue to work along, especially in this case with the Grenada Football Association, to ensure that things do happen. And something I'll put probably to the president when he comes on in terms of that area, the Northwest area, when he comes on the program, how the GFA can work along with yourself and the community to ensure that football rebounds to the level it was once, and how the GFA can assist you folks in ensuring that you maximize the potential of the talents in the area. So I want to thank you once again. Thank you for being part of the program. Hopefully in the new year we can probably do it again. We may be probably talking closer to your initiative with the mothers and daughters and the fathers and non-fathers and probably sons as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mike.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you. Most welcome. So there you have it, folks. The Hectors, as they were part of our program today. And hopefully we will have another, saying hopefully, because probably sometime in December we try to have another in the families, husband-wife combination as part of our program. But I can tell you that come next Saturday, the president of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Chenny Joseph, will be on our program. He will be speaking about the Grenada Football Association, as well as his involvement as a footballer back then, national player, captain, and his ascendancy to the leadership of the Grenada Football Association. He was also once a vice president of the Caribbean Football Union, and all his involvement in football leadership over the years. So thank you once again to Kelvin and Sherry Hector, our guest on the program this week. And your invitation is to join us on Thursday, where we have another in the 1 hour segment of Talk Sports, and then come next Saturday when we'll have the scheduled Saturday sports special. So until then, folks, I thank you once again for being part of our program, and I look forward to your accompaniment on Thursday.